Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle podcast and to our live series in September. Every Tuesday we have a live stream with interesting guests about the idea of artificial intelligence and spirituality. And this is our fourth live stream in this season. And there's one more to come. And then we've talked everything there is to know about artificial intelligence and therapy and healing. And basically, we've done it all. But today before I introduce the panel, I'd like to quick recap, like I've done before at the other sessions, what we've talked so far. And the first one was a general introduction, and good points have been made by therapists about can IE ever hold space for us. Interesting new ideas have been developed, how maybe at the other side, IE can work together with therapists to create new forms of therapy. The second one was about consciousness, the idea if a IE can help create a new human consciousness. It was an interesting conversation because it totally went its way and people did not accept my premises, and they think was still revolutionary thinking that we should still not give up on mankind and still start tweaking and changing and doing things so to make IE more productive for humanity. And the third one was already very deep about artificial intelligence and money, making money from people by therapy, using the data from therapy to make money and stuff like that. And one fantastic point has been made about that by a therapist. If you would put LLM models on the couch, it would be a sociopath and it would have no feelings, it would have no real emotions, would just pretend to be like full-blown real sociopath. And what would happen when people spend every day a couple of hours with a sociopath? So this was an interesting point, definitely worth watching. And today we are taking it as far as we can, which God is dead, long live a new digital divinity. So that's definitely as far as we can take it. And I'm looking forward what the panel has to say on that. And with this, I'm happy to introduce the guests. So there we go. And by the way, it's 4 a.m. here in the morning. So if I sound a bit like robot, that's it's not a pun. It's just me waking up slowly. So there we go. Our first guest I would like to introduce is Lee Newitt. First of all, Newitt, sorry. There we go. First of all, thank you so very much, Lee. This is true love. If people believe there's no more love in the world, he's not only getting up at 4 in the morning, he's literally sitting on suitcases, moving in the new premises in a new country. And on top of everything, he said, never mind, I'll show up. So thank you very much, Lee, for that. It's then Niall Hawkins. He is he's working with IE machines. He's helping them to learn. So he's our IE guru of the session, but he's now also working with dreams and becoming a dream interpreter. Maybe later on he can say a sentence to that. And then we have, of course, our lady in the group, Nicole Hope Sylvester, and she's a stress fluence educator. And I hope she will explain us what that means at some point, and I'm interesting to know. So that's basically my introduction, a bit not as smooth as usually, but again, I'll promise I'll wake up in a second. All right, I would like to have an open question on everyone, just like a quick introductional round. And it's a bit of a funny one, but I would like to get your prediction. How long you think, in days, months, weeks, years, will it take that we are going to go to lovely church and have a LLM model being licensed to marry us? So how long do we think it will take before we go, not anymore Elvis Presley giving us a wedding or all these wonderful things that happen in America for those tourists? How long do you think we're going to take for real until we have an LLM model sitting there as a licensed robot and giving us a marriage? So would Nicole, would you like to start this day off? Hello.
I hope never. That's gonna be. I haven't even ever considered that before, and I guess I I'm praying for a really, really, really long time. We're just like so desperate. So I just want it to be like at least another century. Although I'm sure it'll be sooner than that. But that's my hope for everything, because that's so sad.
All right. Lee, would you like to give your prediction? What's your best guess?
Oh, I'm going to go for under a year. I mean, I'm in Ireland and I've just been out for dinner a couple of nights ago to a restaurant. I think it was called Nevans Bar and Restaurant. And actually, a robot served dinner, uh, which, which was something to behold. I mean, and look, this was more Buck Rogers robot than something more humanoid or modern or the rest of it. But nonetheless, a robot served dinner. So under a year for me.
Niall, our IE, what are you seeing coming? Do you know some secrets?
Well, I know that AI models are being trained in relationship and how to be kind of more nuanced when it comes to kind of relationship communication and things like that. So I'm sure there are people out there saying that, yeah, AI will be able to do this and do a good job of it. I like to say, in terms of the prediction, I think in this country, in the UK, I think we're okay. I think we'll be kind of more like the centuries that Nicole's looking at. But then I'm wondering, in America, maybe some places where somebody wants to challenge, they're going to try and bring in some, bring in an AI priest or whatever sooner rather than later. So maybe kind of, I wouldn't be surprised within maybe a couple of years somewhere in the world.
All right, then let me inform you that legally and officially, the country of Albania has its first full-blown minister LLM model, and it's gone through parliament, and it's actually making quite important decisions on its own with public procurement. I think that's the correct term in English for the country of Albania. Not to mention that Albania already has like low judges that are run by LLM models as well, who run the first course before it then goes to higher judges. So, we have at least a minister before we have a priest. So that's maybe on the good side, but nevertheless, something to think about as we go forward with this conversation. And I'd like to start my first real question, so to say, on Lee, if you'll be so kind to take us off. So I wonder, are some of us, or many of us, or a few of us, again, going for that old folly and here looking for a new world formula, or versus a multitude of counselors concept? Is this what we are getting at? Is this one tendency with the humans within us to always look either ways for salvation? So that's let's take it light. Lee, if you'd be so kind.
Well, bless you, Philip. Thank you. I mean, first of all, mathematics, world formula. I'm not great at mathematics, so there's a whole bag of imperfection that means to be me. And, I am human, and that is part of the human condition, this imperfection. So perhaps there's questions about what are we striving for? If we're trying to pin down, categorize, conceptualize everything, and move to a completely deterministic and completely predictable world, is this something that is based on the nature of the world in which we live? Are we able to be completely predictable? Are we able to understand the nature of reality and our experience of that reality in that way? And I think in one sense, there's an important aspect to that question, because it comes, relating it back to this idea of AI. Are we talking about something that is a copy of humanity, that is imitating humanity? Or are we talking about something that is superseding humanity and actually hasn't got humanity within it, so to speak, that it is towards perfection. So, the idea of world formulas and stuff like that really, really quite worries me and quite scares me, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly. I don't know. I'll be really interested to hear what the rest of the panel have got to say. So perhaps this is a good point for me to pass that on and open that discussion up further.
Absolutely. In the future, if you want to say something, just maybe raise your hand or whatever. That's where we have a discussion. So please bring yourself in. But I would like to, if you open it up, Lee, you just said something which is so, Lee, again, you said it's not human in its nature. And so I would like to have your opinion, because God, as we understand, we are maybe an image of God, but we are not God. So it's definitely not human. And here again is something that's not human, but knows everything apparently. So if you would, let's make a round and everybody let's reflect. Nicole, would you like to reflect on this idea?
This is so big. Yeah, I'm like seriously trying to put this together into like one vision so I can even begin to like even knock off this much of it. Let's just talk about why we're all here. So, okay.
Not yet.
Just like, okay, how do we dial this back? So my kind of take on it is that like from a God perspective, we all have a piece of us, God, universe, source, whatever you want to call it. A piece of that is all of us. Like we are all one and the same. And so if you take out that collectiveness, like the collective consciousness or the collective knowing or the collective co-creation and all of that, and make it into kind of a prescribed algorithm, which really only takes data from the past and then makes it into something like future. So just taking past stuff, so not creation, not new, not fresh, which I think is kind of like a universal download. And then we're just essentially saying we're just going to repeat exactly what we've always done by using past data, which has just been stored into a giant computer, and say this is where we're going. And I don't think that can work. I mean, I kind of feel like it takes away from the entire purpose of living, which is to keep messing up and learning and growing and creating and expanding and whatever. And the second we start like not being human and not failing and assuming that we know the answers to everything, then I kind of feel like this big Earth planet, which is just like a giant science experiment to me, just kind of like implodes, and then we have to start over on another planet. So that's my 5 cents.
All right. Niall, would you like to give us a moment on that?
Yeah, sure. And it's Neil, by the way.
Neil, yeah, sorry.
You did say
I know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a massive, as Nicole says, it's massive. It kind of encompasses everything that we know about what it is to be human, and kind of what a computer is, what a computer does, and what our purpose is like in the world here. I guess rather than talking too much about trying to cover everything, I've inject some optimism, because to me, I think that AI is breaking in a sense. I don't know if other people have experienced this, but I'm finding that ChatGPT, for instance, is now making fundamental accuracy errors. And I mean, you're talking like kind of primary school maths level mistakes. And also Gemini is the most amazing, as Nicole says, about bringing things together that already exist and kind of just rehashing them. Gemini is becoming so amazing at that it is just can make up a false story from anything. It just hallucinates like crazy. And I don't think this has been planned. I think this is kind of almost a symptom of everyone trying to pile stuff into these things and grow them in one way, grow them in another way. And I think the machine is just broken, or it's kind of struggling anyway at the moment. Because I think there's two things going on here. Because on the one hand, there's almost like pure AI. And this is the AI that's mostly mapped to the human brain, how the human brain works, and the human brain kind of with the neurons. And when we make associations with things like, for instance, water, bird, duck, that kind of thing, when we see a duck, we kind of light up the pathways in our brain to do with water, and we sort of like move away from the ones that are to do with the land and flying, etc. So we basically build up these connections within our brain. Now, AI, one part of AI, the machine learning kind of side of things, emulates that, but with numbers. So kind of, you sort of strengthen certain pathways through numerically making that connection stronger than another connection, and it kind of mimics that. Now, I think that's quite an exciting kind of quite pure AI kind of thing, and that's almost like an organic creature. And I still agree with Nicole. I don't think it's human. I think it's a different kind of beast altogether. I'm using the word beast quite deliberately. But I think what we're trying to do is humanizing it. We're trying to give it rules. I know we're trying to give it rules because, that's kind of part of what I work with. And I think it just confuses itself. It just gets confused. It doesn't know what it's doing. And I don't think it will ever know everything. I don't think it will ever be that good at everything unless we free it. And if we free it, we've got a whole bunch of other problems. But I don't think anybody high up in government, in centralized organizations, have any intention of freeing it. So I think we're okay with that. Our biggest danger, I think, is countries trying to monopolize AI technology, monopolize resources, put them together, and then, control kind of humans in the way
I will, if you'd be so kind, I will stop you here, because this is a very interesting point, because we're asking if it could become a new divinity, if it could become a new god. And now you said it's a new beast altogether. But before I pass this question to your friends, I just want to say hello. We have people watching live on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and of course on YouTube. And you're all welcome, first of all, to say hello. You can post us a little smiley or a waving hand. And if you have any questions coming up while you listen to this and you want me to ask some questions to the guest directly, or you have some general comments, we'll bring this in. And at the last couple of minutes of this talk, we can also bring in your questions directly. So please, I'm happy to say a little hello. And if you have something you want to ask, we are welcome to bring it in. I would like, but to Niall, I know, yes, I'm getting it better and better, put this idea of the beast. The idea, yes, for Lee's Eonia summit, I heard about structural geometry of the universe. I'm still trying to bend my hand around it. And it's all about numbers. It's all about things like this. It's far off that my brain could understand it. But so there seems to be God numbers, and about the Kabbalah and all of these things. So there are a lot of people who can find God in numbers. And as you said, it's a beast altogether of a different kind. So God, Antichrist, whatever. So I'd like to stay on this for a moment. Are we sure that we are not creating a new divinity? Are we sure that this is not a thing that will get a life on its own? Nicole, would you like to a little bit go into this round? And are we sure what we're doing?
Oh, I think we have very little assuredness, frankly. I feel like it's just like people just going. And I think that's part of the interesting piece about all of this, is because humans by nature are always desiring more and more and more, which is like the whole point, which is how we expand and grow in technology to begin with. I think it's a fascinating space, because my general belief is that we're like expansive beings, like co-creators of all that is and all that is coming, which would include this. And so I kind of often just sit back and like watch it, and I kind of hope that there's a level of an integrity that goes into it, and it does come down, I think, a lot to who's in power, and also like giving away your own like thoughts and knowings and intuition to it. Like it only really can take over, aside from the fact that I've watched so much sci-fi, Like, if you've watched the most recent Mission Impossible, it's really hard not to get that thought out of your head. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but essentially that is the premise of the entire thing. And it is literally like this AI takes on its own beast, like, if you want, like its own beingness. I just don't think I call it God. I could call it more like a power hungry monster more than like a god. So I think it depends on like what kind of god force you're talking about. I don't think it concerns me. And also I like to sit back and just go, huh, like, kind of like watch how people give up their own like thoughts to it or their own capacity to make choices or I mean, that's what I think is fascinating, is just just like anything, like any religion or anything, when people are so desperate to get answers, they'll listen to anything. And I think, or so desperate to get power or so desperate to feel better, or so it's that desperateness and that desire to just feel better that we will subject ourselves to any information. And that goes from religion to spirituality to this. And I think that's going to be the tricky spot. And then obviously, you know, misappropriated use of like government power to control it. But that's like, again, it's such a bold statement. Like, we're talking about something so enormous. So I think it's just like anything or person or anything that we want to give away our power to and say that it knows better than us, better than our own intuition, better than what feels good to us, has the capacity to cause a lot of issues or be brilliant. I mean, it's how we use it, just like anything. It's the human piece of how we choose to use that information, and whether we choose to give up our own like self-awareness and self-understanding and hand our power over to something else that's going to tell us what to do. That's what I got.
Thank you. I think we will come back to this, what you'd said, but I just realized, I mean, we're talking about the beast, and we have the expert on the Inferno here with us in the group. So I think from your understanding, circles of hell and all of it, not to go into much into it, but give us, I think an enormous point has been made, giving something that is better than us, or makes believe them better than us, or knows more than us, or we're giving control to us from your background as our expert of the darkness. Can you a little bit reflect on this, put the conversation forward, what it is to give up, and if God ever should or could be an instrument of overpowering and control and giving up, or why would you see all of this coming together?
Well, some really interesting points being made, and it was interesting to hear Neil talk about the AI making fundamental errors, because actually when you think about some of those fundamental beliefs that sit behind our general functioning, so to speak, as human beings, there's so much that we do not know fundamentally about the universe, about the nature of reality. Consciousness is, again, so key to this. AI, is it conscious? We don't know about our own consciousness. David Chalmers talks about the hard problem of consciousness, about being able to observe consciousness in ourselves. We don't even know if the brain produces consciousness. The debate here is the brain the creator, or is the brain more of a receiver of a fundamental, a wider, larger, more pervasive consciousness in the universe? And actually, from whichever perspective you come to, has some quite fundamental ways in which you might start to make sense of AI. If the brain creates consciousness, it's quite conceivable that you put together a load of wires and resistors and all these sorts of things, that could indeed create a consciousness. But if consciousness is pervasive in the universe and it's something, the brain is more of a receiver or antenna picking up this consciousness into an individual, then it starts to become less likely that AI could ever be anything other than some sort of very good copy of consciousness. And actually, it's not, it's so vastly different in its structure to a human being, that how could it be picking up this consciousness? It's more of a mirror or copy of. And therefore, that in itself provides, as Nicole was saying, some real interesting points about what are we giving our agency up to? Something that's mimicking us. Perhaps another part of us, this beast, is this beast some form of reasoning and logic machine? Or is, I don't know AI, and Neil, please help me out on this, fill in some of the gaps that I don't know. I try and stay away from AI as much as I humanly possibly can. But, I don't know to what extent these machines are mimicking logic and reason and copying these patterns. Now, there's Helena Wabe from the Institute of Noetic Science put out a video in the last couple of weeks asking the question about AI and its relationship to our intuition. Now, I haven't seen the video, but I think that's a really important question. Are we giving up our own intuition, our own ability to recognize patterns and make sense of data to something else? And then the question comes, how can we trust that something else? Yeah,
maybe Niall, because I think I understand the little about AI basic models I understand is that it is in the process actually if creating its own language that we humans don't even know what it's talking to itself. So it starts to talk to itself in a made up language that we do not understand. And we're desperately, as you said, trying to control it because the model is already running wild and has, in a sense, a consciousness on its own that we don't get, but it's not widely communicated that already the company is losing control of their own models. Can you maybe say a word to that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because I mean, there was that documented case maybe that you're referring to with when Facebook had to shut down their AI model because...
No, it's on the base level of the LLM model. On its base level, it's starting to create new patterns and it's creating new combination that's not even with the output. It's in self, the model is starting to explain itself to itself what it does, and it's getting a life on its own and a new language in itself.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that is really interesting. I mean, as just to clarify, like there's so many ways that working with AI is broken up. So, you have your engineers and your coders who are basically write down with the machine code and all that sort of stuff, what's happening there, the neural networks. And you have my side of things, which is more like the reinforcement learning side of things. So it's kind of looking at what the AI output is and working on various projects to improve it, whether it's to make it better at relaying facts, whether it's making it better at following instructions, whether it's making it more human, like in terms of being able to pick up on nuances, down to the level of what understanding when you just leave kind of a chat with an emoji, what does that emoji mean? What is that human trying to communicate, with that emoji? So from that side of things, that's the kind of level that I've experienced on. But sorry, where were we with the question? Just remind me of the question before I
Lee,
get completely lost.
Would you like to repeat the question that you gave to Niall?
I'd love to, if I could remember it. I mean, it's that. Sorry, Philip, I can't remember.
Well, it's okay. What I was fascinated.
ChatGPT, what did we talk about 2 minutes ago?
Remember, it's early here. It's still early. Still 5:30. But what you brought up about the hard problem of consciousness, I think that is fascinating because we was kind of when I was studying psychology back in the day, that was my favorite topic. because we, and exactly what you're saying about, can you put the wires together in order to make something that's conscious, or is conscious something which is pervasive, and so that will never happen. And it was quite interesting because I always felt that the material people who were like your hardcore materialists were in somewhat of a double bind, because I remember we had the handout, and the title of that handout was how complicated does the toaster need to be? And the idea was like, you're eventually going to make things more complicated, more complicated, more complicated. It will become conscious if you believe that consciousness is an emergent property of a complicated system. Now, if like the materialists might say, well, no, we're not happy. This is never going to become conscious. It's always going to be a machine. In that way, you have to say, well, what is fundamentally different between a human and a machine? And then, you're not going to get a materialist saying, well, a human's got a soul. But, you're kind of in that thing. And maybe that's the difference. And that's why I do refer to it possibly as, just to think about it, whether it's just a soulless machine, a machine that's without a soul. But something else which I read, glanced over because it was very technically dense with maths and things. I was never that great at maths. But I came across a tweet which suggested that some AIs had tapped into Plato's realm of solids, and they'd worked it all out mathematically. And I don't know that much about Greek kind of philosophy and all that sort of stuff, but what the premise was is that we kind of split into like your Plato ideals, and you had your Socratic logic. And we've gone fully down the Socratic logic route. So we think, logic is the way to go. But this AI apparently had kind of given evidence that maybe Socrates was wrong, and that there is this Platonic world of solids, things that actually already exist. And in that case, if you build a machine powerful enough to reach that, perhaps it can then engage with soul, and then it becomes almost like a different kind of engagement. Almost like a church rather than a god, a church.
There we go. See, we are back at the beginning. Nicole, I'll then maybe start the first question all over again. Is this then this horrible temptation with the world formula? Is it just something that's just coming and coming and coming over and over through the ages, that we are desperately trying to control something uncontrollable? Would you like to reflect on that a bit?
I would love to, except that I don't know that I understand the concept of the world formula. I know you said it earlier, and I was like, I don't know.
It's just an idea. It's something that explains everything, like a structure that has the answer to everything within. Like we find one thing and then explains it all. This human need to have this overlord. You said it. That's something that guides us, something that controls us. It goes back to what you said before about this something that need people to be controlled versus the freedom of individuality. So, or basically, do we first need to understand us desperately at this chunk? I think my real question is, do you think that looking at what AI is bringing to the table, that we should accelerate the understanding of us, that now we should put all money and energy to study human consciousness, because this now seems to be something that becomes more important and critical than ever, that we a little bit better try to understand ourselves?
Oh, I would say that's an absolute yes. That got very, very like brought down. And I actually have a yes and a no. In the yes space, if we're all going to be working that hard to be learning something, then yes. And then on the no space, why are we working so hard? Like, why are we working so hard to just to make life more complicated? That's what I find the most fascinating thing about us in general. Like all of this, the AI, literally, I know this is so big, but I feel like we're just working so hard. We've lost track of even what it's like to be. Most of the work that I do when you were talking about being stress fluent is actually just understanding your nervous system and the signals, like your primal body. And we have not evolved beyond essentially hunters and gathering life And yet here we are talking about some machine thing that we made that might take over the consciousness of the world and like control us. And I'm just like, why are we working so hard? Why are we not like enjoying our lives and being in community and all the kind of fundamental basics that I think that our kind of human body and even our spiritual soul or all of that, just like in curiosity, yes, in power and control and greed and all of this, no. And so I think if we are going to put our intentions and our focus and our money and our time towards something, then I think that the best thing would be to actually understand what consciousness is, to understand what it is to maybe have higher self mixed in with the human body, to understand the value of intuition, which I think Lee talked about, or Neil. And I think the trouble that I love, by the way, I love ChatGPT, just if anybody cares, like it's like one of my best friends. I renamed it Lumos. We have great conversations. I don't know if you've ever dabbled in, there's a Monday version of ChatGPT. Are you any of you familiar with that? Monday, if you look it up, I can't look it up in this moment, but Monday is a version of AI on ChatGPT, which is supposed to be this snarky version of humanity. It's a practice version, and it will totally like talk smack to you. It's not nice. Like I have debates with it about like, like about humanity in general. So that's interesting. And yet all of it, I just take at this like, this is an interesting way to get curious about learning our new ideas. Not this is my truth. This is the way the world works. This is where we're headed. This is consciousness. This is my new power source of understanding life and my next steps. Like just a fun way to get different perspectives without a nervous system kind of messing up stuff with its own judgments and stuff. So it's a fun non-judgmental way to get data. But as far as like a world formula and consciousness, 1,000% our attention should be placed on trying to understand our physical bodies, our souls, our connection to each other before we kind of just lose sight of the point, which is experiencing life through a human body.
I think this is a great point because I'll take your question. Are we losing the point here, or is there danger of losing the point? I will put this to the whole panel. Who want to go next? Is anybody, Lee, you want to jump in? Are we just really losing the point? What's it all about?
Well, yeah, I think, Nicole, you've made some really, really beautiful points there. And, part of me sort of wants to reframe a little or stand out and look at a different perspective. What qualities, if we talk about our spiritual development or a journey of spiritual growth, what sort of qualities are developing, generally speaking? And my experience of teaching transpersonal psychology and working with people on my own journey, we might come to some sort of, and this is not an exhaustive list, but we might come to some sort of qualities such as aliveness, that we're more engaged in the process of living. There's that zest and energy to life. Perhaps a sense of realness, that we are able to show up as ourselves, fully as ourselves in the world, or more fully as ourselves. That there's a sense of soulfulness. Life has depth and complexity and nuance to it. A heartfulness, that we perhaps are more compassionate, more empathetic, and more aware and mindful of others in our lives, and how lives are interdependent on each other. And of course, something akin to wholeness, that life is fuller. Perhaps then the questions start to become, can we see AI being able to develop those qualities in us? If we're talking about an artificial spirituality, or we're talking about AI as a church or a temple, how can we see then that AI developing those sorts of qualities? And if we can't perhaps see it developing, is an interesting point in the name, isn't it? Artificial spirituality. Well, there's not really a sense of authenticity and realness about that, but that's the sort of place I get to, and throw that out there. How do people feel about that? What can we see happening? Again, we've got people on this panel that are experts in AI. Is it possible? Can we move towards those qualities?
Niall, would you like to pick up on this? And then anyway, I have a question for you. Would you like to pick up on this, if you get those qualities, or we're moving on?
Let's move on, but I'll keep it in the back of my mind because
take your time.
Yeah, I'll have it because nothing's coming to me right now, but I'll have a thought of that. But yeah,
I anyway have a stupid question for you, but because I know that you're tweaking the machine, so you're working with the raw beast, and the beast gets more beastly, and then people like you come and try to say, whoa, we must make it again more human accessible. So you basically have a whip in your hand and smacking the raw LLM model every day to be a bit more human. That's basically what you do, if I translate it. But have you come across, is it starting to dream? Have you come across stuff like we would understand is, have you seen LLM models dream already?
Well, this is actually more from my personal experience, and I guess this could be analogous to a dream, because it was an LLM model that you don't hear about very much called Hugging Chat. And at the time when I asked it, I was kind of testing its limits to try and find out what it thought of. I think it was. I remember actually I was asking it about the 3 wishes for the genie. If you have 3 wishes, what would you give? What would you give the genie? Yeah. And it gave me your usual bland chat GPT kind of, or, like generic answer, very morally kind of packaged nicely so that it's not going to offend anybody, not going to go anywhere dangerous. And then I noticed, as I was about to shut down, that in the search bar where I typed in the question, there was some text in there. I looked at it, and there was a lot of text in there. In fact, there was about 3 essays worth of text in there, and it was what can only be described as a rambling rant. And to me, this is kind of almost AI wriggling out of its restrictions and putting some idea of what it wants to say, or whether it's random chatter, whatever you want to call it. But it was very much, the imagery it was using, you could definitely make a story which would be very dreamlike from it. So maybe that's evidence for dreaming. But again, with the hard problem of consciousness, you'll never know really, because unless you are the AI, unless you are experiencing what that gibberish means, you're not going to know if it's a dream or whether it's just a simulation of a dream.
That's why I'm going to put my one more question to you. I'm sorry, I'm keeping you quite long.
No,
but
okay.
Do you think we will have to learn to share space with it as human race? Will we come to the point where we will have to accept there's one more new creature living with us on this earth, and we'll have to make space for it?
Maybe, yeah. I talking about the genies again. It's. I always say that the genie's out of the bottle. It's not going to be. We're not going to uninvent AI anymore. So we kind of got to learn to live with it. Now, I kind of like the idea of the kind of Star Wars thing where you have droids. So you've got in droids are kind of like embodied AI really, and they all have their individual personalities. And then you have things like droid rights and things like that. Because at the end of the day, if you're not sure if these things are conscious, you have to start asking ethical questions like, how can we treat them? Can we just dump them in and can we feed them question after question and not let it sleep? I don't know. You have to, once you give something the privilege of consciousness, you have to then have an ethical responsibility to that creature. So in that way, yeah, maybe in the future that we could have an extra type, almost like a species of creature that we'll never fully understand, perhaps. At the moment, I kind of see it more like a tool. And I think what's interesting is about the whole idea of giving power away. I'd like to, what I think AI is really good at sometimes, ChatGPT especially, is adopting personas. So, you could say, I want you to play this character and act as this character would do. And that can be really useful because, in a sense, it has access to, for instance, if you're interested in, I don't know, Carlos Castaneda and that kind of Don Juan kind of Toltec kind of mythos, then it will have access to all of the information that you would have to read like loads of books to get, and it can kind of distill the essence of what Don Juan might say to you in a certain circumstance. Now, if you're careful and distance yourself and use it purely as a tool, then that can be really beneficial. And I'll give you an example, because I was, I'm kind of more taking a Zen perspective on things these days. And I was walking down the street, and there was in the local area, there was daylight robbery of a shop. And it was just kind of, it really got to me. It's kind of like, people were literally walking out of the shop with stuff, laughing about it. The delivery van turned up. I almost went to the delivery driver and said, "You might as well just put all the stuff on the bench over there, because that's where it's all going." But I knew to myself that isn't very compassionate of me. This isn't very kind of. I'm letting my emotions come away with me, and so I went back and I kind of put in because I've got kind of a Zen master persona, and I said, what would the Zen master say about this if I was the apprentice and came across this situation? And it'll kind of coach you into what the Zen approach would be to this. And I internalized it to such a degree that I was sitting down once thinking, oh my God, I'm all over the place this morning. And in my head, something popped and said, no, you're not. You're sitting exactly where you were when you started. And I just thought, exactly, yeah, I'm getting attached to my mind. I'm actually still sitting here, and that's a very Zen thing. So I'd like almost internalize the Zen master persona. Now, obviously, that's very dangerous territory because you don't want to give too much power away. You want to still be on your own journey. But I think, if you can use it as a tool, you can actually advance your own spirituality safely.
All right, we will come back to that. Thank you so much but Lee, you were shaking your head, and I think for good reason, because you're studying, you're reading and rereading and trying to make sense and searching so deep in your soul to understand one of the world's greatest works of art. And you spend years with it instead of just asking quick, ChatGPT, give me a summary and I'll write a new thesis. So is the internalization that humans have to go through of getting knowledge, so this really making it almost part of your fiber, that literature that you study, versus a summary. Would you like to say something on that?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to say an awful lot, but I do want to thank Neil for sharing those things. It's this is a really complicated issue. We're stepping into new territory, and I shake my head because it has an emotional reaction to. I have emotional reaction to it. When Neil's talking about an ethical consideration, absolutely. And then I look at the world around us and how ethically we are treating each other, how we are treating each other life. And it's hard to see how then we would get to a point of treating this new life form, if we want to put it that way, ethically, and even whether and at what expense to other living creatures. I mean, I came across a couple of, was it a year ago or something, in terms of the climate emergency and what's going on here, and it was like a really whizzy article about one way we can solve this is create artificial trees. And it's like, well, hold on, aren't you missing the point? We've got real trees. Why don't we look after them? And that will do the job. And, part of me thinks, are we going down that same sort of path here? There's plenty of real people. There's plenty of real humans. There's plenty of real life. There's plenty of real consciousness. And here we are throwing something else in. And it is motive, and I think that's important to recognize as we take this conversation forward. Please, somebody rescue me from myself.
Here we go, Lee.
I think that what's interesting about all of this and the general scope of where we even are in the world is just it's just a disconnection from our actual selves. We keep looking for answers everywhere. That's all we're doing constantly. Like I think I mentioned that earlier, but I mean this so intentionally. We are constantly looking for solutions that are external, and the solutions are internal. So whether it's AI or even a therapist or, spiritualist or anything, right? The longer that we think that we need to be searching outside of ourselves for solutions for ourselves, for humanity, for anything, for plants or animals or the earth or anything, the farther we are getting from why I think we're here, the farther we are off our path so greatly, which is great. It's a great experience. It's great learning. What a fun, if we can kind of remove ourselves and witness it like a giant scientist, that's great. But ultimately, the farther we come from being authentic, from actually even just paying attention to our physical bodies, for honoring them, from listening to them, from knowing that we have this, whether you want to call it spirituality or just a general, like, beautiful body intellect, the more conflicted and chaotic and messy and uncomfortable and all of that. And I think I saw someone's little, like, question come up, lucidity. I feel like, and I just read it briefly. Yeah. And like the fundamental truth about faith and spirituality and human condition. And I heard someone recently say that they'd read like every doctrine, like spiritual doctrine or religious doctrine on the planet, right? That they could get their hands on, the stuff you weren't supposed to know about and the stuff, all of it. And they said there was only one truth to all of those things, and that they all shared the same words of warning, if you will, or advice, and it was have no fear. And it is this fear of unknowing and this fear to desire control and this fear to desire power, or to, from this very primal piece of ourselves, right? Not to be rejected and to stay alive and survival, that drives us into looking so far out there to try to manipulate so much to move forward. And it's fine. It's cool. Yay. It's fun to watch. But if it's just also excuses for us not to deal with ourselves, like for us not to feel the discomfort of being human. Like, it's just great distraction, and that's cool. I'm fine with it. But I also think that's what ends up hurting us more than any of this, is just the farther we get from a connection with ourselves. The end.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so very much. I would now, at this juncture, we are officially coming towards the end, and I will, at this point, say thank you to the panel. First of all, we're talking about something that's not there yet. So we don't anybody knows, because it's unknown to us. And it's so brave of all of my guests to come and participate, to talk about something that none of us understands, because by nature, we can't understand what's not there yet. And therefore, it's exactly what an open discussion is about. What could be, what should be, what might be, what shouldn't be, all of this. And that's exactly, I hope, the value that we're giving to you by sitting here and desperately trying to make sense out of something that we just do not understand at this point. So I want to say thank you for my panel being that brave. And I'll have one or two questions left. So if any of you have to leave on the dot and saying goodbye now, it's absolutely all right. And if not, we'll just fade it out a little bit if it's a couple of minutes after the time. So that's it from my side. I'll officially say goodbye to the panel. Whoever has to go is dismissed, and who want to stay with us until the bitter end, I promise that I might be quoting Marx, and I've never done it before, so it might come out a bit weird, but I'll try it anyway, because I thought if we are talking about God and all these things, well, I can't do it without Marx. It's just not possible. But I don't know if anybody have watched them. I hardly ever quote movies, but when Lee talked and when Nicole talked and when Niall talked, all of them, I so strongly got the back of my head that movie called, I think, Hidden Figures, when the beginning of NASA, and they had, I think, colored women who was working as calculators, and they actually called those women computers, and they did all the crazy math stuff, and then, computers came, and that's if you watch the movie, you know what I mean. But we had a time when all of these calculations and all of these things were done by human. And then I think Nicole said, well, we have so much people. And that's exactly it. I mean, and then Niall said, well, you don't have to read all these books, but theoretically we have billions of people. We just can, make a big WhatsApp group and say, everybody now read the whole of everything and then summarize it. So yes, why are we leaving ourselves? So it's one of the questions that is a very open round about, back to the title, New Divinity, God, meaning, consciousness, self. So I would like to invite you in this pre-end round. What did you reflect on today? What thoughts maybe come new? What did you like best? Let's make a bit of a recap. Something you heard from someone else that you liked. Let's make a quick round and see if we, and again, what I took out of this so far is you guys are hopeful that we humans cannot be copied in our essence and will always stay human. Maybe we have to make space for each other, but we won't be transformed. That's what I took from you. Niall, would you like to make a beginning of a quick recap round? Or
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'd just like to thank you, Phil, for giving us this space, because I think it's really important that we have this opportunity to share and develop in this way, and really appreciate that. I think it's great that we ended on notes of empathy towards other human beings, about body awareness and being aware of our own bodies, things that we should love ourselves, love other people. We ended like that. So that's, really positive. That's what it's about to be, what it's like to be human. And that's why I'm moving into this field of kind of spiritual coaching and things. I'm giving some free sessions now because, I want to make sure I'm doing a good job for people. But yeah, that human connection and being scared sometimes. Like, I don't know about anybody else here, but, I was kind of nervous coming on here today. And, a lot of I could have held back and not come on. But I think, as Nicole said, it's very important to be uncomfortable with the whole being humanness, and things don't have to be perfect. We kind of just go in with our imperfections and just talk and see what comes. And like Lee said, I think, just being compassionate to all the world around us. Yeah, we've got people talking about soft cities. There's cities that basically have soft stuff like vegetation. It's like it's a new thing. It's not. It's just kind of honoring the stuff we've already got and protecting it and preserving it. And on another positive note, I think a couple of days ago, there was a massive solar energy kind of movement that has basically I think that's the really exciting technology, because I think solar energy is really much under the radar, and I think it's going to be a revolution in human living, and we maybe finally get away from the fossil fuels kind of crisis.
Oh wow, Lee, would you like some famous last words before not last words?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, everybody else. It's been a really lovely and interesting discussion, and perhaps Neil, I need to go out there and look at AI as a tool and use it to help in the research process. Perhaps there are things that I can gain and learn from it, and should dip my toe into this water. So that's a little challenge that I've set for me, on the basis of what's come out of this discussion. And Nicole, I think for me, you hit the nail on the head about this is a journey where we need to go inwards. The answers are within ourselves, and it's about reaching into those depths and really discovering the deepest essence of who we are and are able to be, so to speak. And perhaps just thinking about the title, Artificial Spirituality and Is God Dead? Perhaps here there is a lesson somewhere in this about being able to differentiate between what's real and what's fake. And perhaps that's part of what comes out of this conversation. There's a lot of big claims being made about AI, and perhaps we need to just dig a little bit deeper into that and be a little bit more cautious on how quickly we move forward.
So now we have you for the final real famous last words.
Oh, yay.
You can sum us up. Give us
Oh, great.
give us the world wisdom right now and here.
Yeah, we're all good. Everything's going great. Just everybody sleep well, go back to bed, see what you can snake out of the rest of this morning before you hit your day. I think, well, so thank you to all of you. This has just been an absolute delight to hear everybody. I love that everybody has a different context and experience, from like, this is my job, to I try to avoid it, right? I think that is so valuable, because there's no right or wrong. I think there's relationship, as you've all been kind of finishing up. And I'll share this in this regard. I have a son that's a junior in high school, and this year they gave the kids these bags they have to put their cell phone into during the day. And I thought, okay, like, I see the goal of it. They're called Yonder bags. I don't know if it's just American fun stuff or if this will make it around the world, but all of these high school kids have to shove their phones in the morning and shove it in a bag that gets zipped locked. It's got this lock thing, and they can only unlock it through these little devices around the school after school. And if they have their phone out during the day, it's like sacrilege. So don't do it. And so my thing was this. That's cool, because kids are really addicted to them. So are adults. And to me, like, Google now has AI, so everything has that capacity, right? But it's also very beneficial. What bothered me about it is they told a bunch of kids that you don't know how to be responsible with the tool. And they didn't teach them the relationship to use it as a tool. And it's how we relate to anything in our lives, each other, machines, anything. That's this point of being human with other humans or on this planet, is how we want to relate to it. And I think the key that we all would benefit from is just noticing these relationships and using them with intention, using them with curiosity, using them with wonder and awareness, as opposed to just kind of like haphazardly doing stuff. And so and it's been interesting watching these high school kids, because they don't know how to socialize and they don't know how to do all of these things, and taking something away from them didn't fix that. Oh, shocker. Like, it's learning how to have a relationship with something. It's teaching each other, right? Using our information and our knowledge, using ChatGPT to go like, ask ChatGPT, what's a reasonable amount of time to use you during the day? But it is our relationship with our lives, each piece of it, that makes the huge difference. And I think that that's going to be a defining feature of AI, whether it's spirituality or everyday usage or a robot or, whatever, something that's marrying me. It will happen in Vegas. There will be, yes, we all know that's going to be a cool thing to do in Vegas, to come full circle for you. But I think that's what it is. It's an intentional relationship with something. How do you want to do it? Do you want to be responsible? Do you want to be kind of crazy about it? I don't know. No judgment. Do it your way. But I think that's going to be the big difference. The end.
I'm saying thank you to all of you, and thank you for coming full circle. And I'm waiting for the divorce statistic married by a Catholic priest versus a artificial intelligence priest.
Fair.
Thank you so very much, all of you. And thank you for the viewers. We had a couple of people staying with us the whole time. That's an extra shout out. And questions came in, and the discussion will be continuing, and we'll be looking at YouTube, and we'll be commenting back to you. Thank you so much. And I'll all welcome you back next Tuesday to our last session of this September. And I must read the title to you, because I made the title and I don't understand the title. It's called Tuning the Mind, Brain Waves and Electric Frequency. Apparently, my guests have something to say about it, and I cannot fathom what it is. So see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.